Japan is quietly closing its doors, not with walls, but with rules. For decades, Japan has been seen as a dream destination: clean cities, rich traditions, and cutting-edge technology. But recently, something has changed. Foreigners are finding it harder to enter, live, or work in Japan. Behind the polite smiles, a silent shift is happening, one that's leaving visitors and residents confused. So, what exactly is going on? Why are fewer foreigners being welcomed into Japan? It started slowly, first with tighter entry rules during the pandemic. Even when most countries reopened their borders, Japan kept restrictions in place much longer. Visa processing slowed. Language requirements got stricter. Foreign workers faced new paperwork and complex residency renewals. Today, students and skilled workers often wait months for approvals. Tourists, too, feel the difference. Fewer long-term stays, less flexibility, and rising suspicion toward anyone who doesn't fit in. At first glance, these seem like normal bureaucratic issues, but there's more beneath the surface. Because these aren't just random policies, they're reflections of how Japan feels about outsiders. To understand that, we need to talk about something deeper: culture. Be the real reason Japan hesitates to open up? Japan's national identity is built on a powerful idea: harmony. It's the belief that society works best when everyone cooperates, respects the rules, and avoids conflict. That harmony depends on shared behavior, on everyone knowing what's expected. But for many Japanese people, foreigners don't always understand those invisible rules. Whether it's removing shoes indoors, staying quiet on public transport, or following social etiquette, small misunderstandings can feel like signs of disrespect. These moments, while minor, create distance. They reinforce the feeling that outsiders can't fully blend in. And this feeling doesn't just live in homes or neighborhoods, it shapes national policy. Schools rarely teach multiculturalism. Corporate hierarchies favor Japanese employees. Even in entertainment, foreign characters are often portrayed as temporary visitors, not permanent members of society. Japan doesn't reject foreigners because it dislikes them. It does it because it fears losing the harmony it values most. But to really understand Japan's attitude today, we need to look at its past. For over 200 years, during the Edo period, Japan completely shut itself off from the outside world. Foreign trade was banned, and only a few Dutch and Chinese merchants were allowed in through one small port. This isolation wasn't just policy. It became part of Japan's identity. When Japan finally opened up in the mid-1800s, it did so on its own terms. The Meiji government rapidly modernized, but also made sure that being Japanese stayed pure, distinct, and protected. That mindset continued into the 20th century. Even after World War II, when Japan rebuilt with global help, it maintained strict immigration control. It accepted technology, ideas, and business partnerships, but not people. So while globalization connected the rest of the world, Japan chose a slower, more cautious path. That deep-rooted caution still shapes its policies today. Here's where it gets strange. Japan needs foreigners more than ever before. Japan has one of the fastest aging populations in the world. Nearly 30% of its citizens are over 65. Entire towns are shrinking. More schools close every year because there aren't enough children. At the same time, industries like healthcare, construction, and manufacturing are desperate for workers. Robots help fill the gaps, but not enough. The government knows it can't solve this problem without foreign labor. Yet, it hesitates to invite too many. Even when Japan launched technical trainee programs to bring in workers from Southeast Asia, many participants reported poor treatment, low pay, and limited rights. Some quit early. Others returned home disappointed. Why? Because these programs were designed to borrow labor, not to welcome people as equals. Japan needs help to survive, but it still struggles to see foreigners as permanent members of society. That's the paradox: survival versus identity. And it's not just about work. Even tourists are starting to feel unwelcome. Before 2020, Japan's tourism industry was booming. Kyoto's temples were packed. Tokyo's Shibuya crossing was an endless wave of cameras. The government celebrated record-breaking visitor numbers, over 31 million people in 2019. But locals began to push back. Neighborhoods filled with short-term rentals saw rising rents and overcrowded trains. Temples started banning photography. Residents complained that tourism was changing the soul of their towns. When the pandemic hit, Japan closed its borders, and for a while, life went back to normal. Many citizens quietly admitted they preferred it that way. Now, even as travel resumes, Japan has tightened control. Higher taxes for visitors, limited hotel permits, and campaigns urging respectful tourism. The message is subtle, but clear. You can visit Japan. Just don't stay too long. So, what happens to those who do stay? Foreign residents in Japan often describe a strange experience. They're accepted, but never fully included. Neighbors are polite, but distant. Job opportunities rarely lead to leadership roles. Even after years of living there, many say they still feel like guests. Some report discrimination when renting apartments or applying for jobs. Others say they're treated kindly, but constantly reminded that they're not Japanese. In schools, children of mixed heritage sometimes face bullying for looking or sounding different. On social media, debates about immigration are often filled with worry, not anger, but fear of losing something uniquely Japanese. This isn't hatred, it's protection. But protection that unintentionally isolates the very people Japan needs most. Where does Japan go from here? The government has quietly begun discussing reform. Some leaders argue that Japan must evolve, that diversity isn't a threat, but a strength. Pilot programs now allow more foreign workers to stay longer, and some cities are encouraging international communities to grow. Younger generations, exposed to global culture through the internet, tend to be more open-minded. Many say they want Japan to be a place that welcomes others, without losing what makes it special. But older generations, still holding power, remain cautious. For them, too much change too fast feels dangerous. Japan stands at a crossroads between the safety of sameness and the risk of transformation. What can the rest of the world learn from Japan's struggle? Every country faces a version of this question. How do you stay true to your identity while becoming part of a global community? Japan shows the cost of saying no for too long. Isolation preserves culture, yes, but it can also freeze progress. A nation can protect its past, but without openness, it risks losing its future. Japan's story isn't about foreigners versus locals. It's about a culture trying to balance pride with survival and deciding which one matters more. Japan's hesitation toward foreigners isn't driven by anger or arrogance. It's driven by fear of losing what makes Japan, Japan.